Let's get the official word there. I think we can go ahead and start. And I will again say that I'm Don Haas, the Director of Teacher Programming at the Paleontological Research Institution. And I'm going to let John introduce himself. And I think.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm John Hendricks. I am Associate Director of Science Communication at the Paleontological Research Institution, and I'm a paleontologist.
I just hang out with paleontologists. And John's got the first piece of the agenda, so you want to go ahead and dig in?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen here. And I think we'll be sharing screen most of this evening. Okay, so welcome everyone. So what we want to do here this evening is present sort of a broad overview of a web resource that we've been developing at PRI over the last 3 years that's called Earth at Home. Earth at Home is a completely free resource for anyone to access, no matter where they are located. And one of the ways we hope that folks think about Earth at Home is it's a one-stop shop for all things earth science, climate science, and eventually any background information that somebody might want to know about evolution. And we'll get into that in just a second here. Everything that I'm going to go over tonight can be accessed from this top menu bar. So everything's right there. So if you lose your way, you can always find out where we're at just through the top menu bar, and that's at the top of every single page. You're absolutely free, and in fact, I encourage you to explore on your own as we're sort of going through these resources. We're going to have a little bit of time at the end to do Q&A and have some discussion, so we can take a closer look at materials later. Also, I want to alert you to the fact that at the bottom of every page, there is a place for you to enter your email to join our Earth at Home mailing list. We promise we will not spam you. We'll just provide you with information about major updates to Earth at Home. So you're not going to hear from us, like every day or something like that. It'll just be once in a while when we have something major to share. So I want to sort of first introduce you to the four major components of Earth at Home. We're going to spend just about all of our time this evening on the earth science part of Earth at Home, but I want you to know that there's three other major parts of Earth at Home that we've sort of are moving towards building up over the coming years. And the first of these is climate. There's actually a whole lot of material on this page that's related to web pages and outreach activities that we've developed at PRI related to the science of climate. And I'm not a part of PRI's climate team, but Don is. Don, do you want to say anything just about what's on the climate page?
Sure. So for one thing, we took the teacher-friendly guide to climate change, and the full text of the book is available as a PDF on the site. But we've also taken, I think we're now done with 10 of the 12 chapters of the book, and put them onto the web with interactive stuff and color photographs and videos included within them, and updated some of the content, and also sort of de-teacherified it. So kind of made it into a high school or undergraduate level online text. And we also have dozens of climate change related videos, from ones that are just a half a minute long to ones that are over an hour long. Most of those recordings, the longer ones, are recordings of either workshops or science in the virtual pub. And there's activities in there that you can sort by grade level and subject area, and we are regularly adding new content. There's probably something added, I don't know, more than once every 2 months. I think there is some big new chunk put up. And I'll pass it back to John.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Don. So we're not going to spend too much time digging into the climate portal of Earth at Home tonight, but I just want you to all be aware that it's there, and certainly encourage you to explore on your own. The next major portal that we have is about biodiversity. And right now, this is mostly about the biodiversity of the Cayuga Basin, which is where PRI is located here in the Finger Lakes, near Ithaca, New York. So this is an overview of the hundreds of plants and animals and other organisms that are found in this area. And then we have a part of Earth at Home that we're really planning to devote a lot of attention to in the next year or two, and that's the evolution piece. We have a very large set of web pages related to the evolution of grasses, which of course are very, very important for people because so many agricultural products are ultimately domesticated from grasses. And I'm not going to dig in right now, but again, it's something you might want to check out. And we're going to be adding to this part of Earth at Home over the next year or so. What I want to focus on, though, is earth science this evening. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the major parts of the earth science component of Earth at Home. And then in the second half of tonight's presentation, we're going to focus in on the earth science of the Northeast and share some resources that are really brand new. So I want to start off with the digital encyclopedia of earth science. So what the digital encyclopedia is an open access online textbook about earth science. So what that means is it's free for anyone to access. Almost all of the images in this part of Earth at Home and more generally across the entire Earth at Home website have Creative Commons licensing. That means that you can download the images, and other than a few exceptions, which are clearly marked, you're welcome to use the images basically for educational purposes with very few restrictions. So this part of Earth at Home has an introduction to big ideas related to Earth system science. This was written by Don. There are introductions to basically Earth materials and information about the way that the Earth works. There's an overview of geologic time and Earth history. This shoots you over to another PRI website called the Digital Atlas of Ancient Life. It has a very similar look. This is something that we make. It's closely related to Earth at Home. Just if you click on one of these links, don't get surprised if it looks just a little bit different. It's still a PRI website. We have a lot of information on the digital encyclopedia about fossils, paleontology, and evolution and how evolution works. So that information is there. And then Don mentioned the teacher-friendly guide to climate change. Besides having a downloadable PDF of the complete book, the climate team at PRI has also been really, really busy creating web versions of all of those chapters. So this isn't just a static PDF. These are interactive pages. So again, please do feel free to explore. There really is a tremendous amount of content on this part of Earth at Home now, and it's really, really rich, and there's a lot of great information there.
Yeah, and I will note that the teacher-friendly guide to climate change was published in 2017, and we've updated all of the chapters that have migrated to Earth at Home. So there's new content in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really important, right? Because the news keeps changing really, really quickly. So this allows us to keep everything updated. I apologize. I'm going to be, I'm doing a bit of scrolling here. I know that gets hard to watch if it's too fast. I'm going to try to go slow for everybody. So that's a digital encyclopedia. There's a ton of rich content there for you to dig in on. The next part of Earth at Home that I want to go to is is virtual science. And I think, Don, you were going to present an introduction to virtual fieldwork and virtual labs, and then I'll come back to virtual collections. Shall I stop sharing, Don? Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah,
let's do that. Okay.
And looking at the virtual fieldwork pages, I'll just very quickly note that there's a huge amount of resources here. This is a very quick sort of information dump that you can follow up on later. There is descriptions of why use virtual fieldwork, and I always try to emphasize that we don't see it as a replacement for actual fieldwork, but as an incentive or a catalyst for getting kids out in the field and doing stuff, studying their local environment, or if you get the opportunity to go further afield, doing that. And there's opportunities for making tools and descriptions on how to make your own virtual fieldwork experiences. And oops, I was thinking of that I was on the catalog page, but I'm not. And we've got a catalog of VFEs, a few dozen now. I don't remember exactly how many are in the map. That'll load up in a second. And you can click on any one of these and get information about it and go and visit that particular place virtually. The ones with this icon are part of the EPIC project, and there's some of the newer ones in the database. The newest one in the database is this one on the day the dinosaurs died, and Rob is actually, our colleague Rob Ross is going to be doing a Science in the Virtual Pub on that one in December, whatever the second Thursday of December is. It's at the bottom of the agenda, and you can explore around on these and the broader database. And I think maybe that's all I want to say about it. And so I'll hand it back to John.
Okay. Let me get back to the beginning here. Start sharing my screen again. Okay. So where Don was just now, off that top menu, just to remind everybody of the navigation, we're under virtual science, looked at virtual fieldwork. There's also virtual labs with some experiments that you can do in your classroom. I want to highlight virtual collections now. So we had, even before the pandemic at PRI, we started making 3D photogrammetry scans of a lot of our behind the scenes specimens and specimens out on display in our Museum of the Earth. And we created a bunch of interactive 3D models of all sorts of different geologic specimens. And as it turned out, these were really, really important and useful in, when the pandemic started, because of course, everybody went home. And if you're an instructor, if you're a college instructor who's teaching paleontology, you weren't able to share real fossil specimens with your students. Now, I'd be the first to say that these models are not as good as the real thing, but we're really proud of them, and we think they're sort of the next best thing. I always like to be, I sort of like getting the pop quiz here. We're actually bouncing over to that digital atlas of ancient life, which is tied in with Earth at Home. I always like the pop quiz. Do one of you have a favorite kind of fossil? I want to see if we have it represented in the virtual collection. We've got over 600 3D models in this collection, so I'd like to see how complete it is. Somebody want to give me a test?
I have a strange fondness for ammonites.
Okay, let's do it. We can do that. Okay, so we're going to scroll down here. We're going to we need to find mollusks, and then we need to find cephalopods. So we're going to jump in there. we think of these pages as sort of like like museum drawers that you might pull out. Okay, so then, there's all these different subgroups of cephalopods. We want ammonites, so we're going to go to Ammonoidea. And on this page, we've got a whole lot. Let's find a true ammonite. That means a ammonoid with ammonitic sutures. This one's pretty good. I'll load up the model. These things are interactive in these little boxes. What I think is fun, if you're in a room with students and you have a big screen in your room, is you make it full size. And this is really better than, holding up a little real fossil in your hand, because nobody in the back of the room can see it. And this way students can see it. Some of these models are annotated. So if you click the little numbers, it'll tell you what the structure is that you're looking at. I don't know how many of you have access to 3D printers, but if you do, what you can do is go down to this little blue button in the corner. That takes you to a website called Sketchfab. If you're not familiar with Sketchfab, it's kind of like the YouTube for 3D models. It just hosts all these 3D models. And we've given all of these models public domain licensing. That means you can download the models and do anything you want with them. We found out people have been doing funny things like including them in video games that they're making. They're public domain. You can do whatever you want. You can download the models just by clicking this little download button. And if I was signed in, it would let me download the models just in some common files. You can actually take these files then and send them off to a company that will 3D print the model for you if you don't have your own 3D printer, or you can just feed them the files and make your own copies. So that's pretty cool. We have hundreds and hundreds of these models. Just about every major taxonomic group is represented. Okay, I'm going to, let's see, I am going to go back a step here. I want to include this link in the chat just in case anybody missed how we got there. Let's see, there's that link. Okay. I'm now going to go back to Earth at Home. So that was the virtual collection. So we were under virtual science. What I want to do now, I want to make sure I'm not skipping anything. Okay, additional resources. So on Earth at Home, we have a ton of additional stuff before we even get to the regional guides, which is sort of the focus of this evening. I'm just going to scroll through this page to highlight some of these resources. They're all listed in the drop down here as well. One page, and you'll see an example of this later, although I can jump in here a little bit. We have complete guides now to the fossils of the United States. You can pick any region of the United States. I'm going to skip fossils of the Northeast because we're going to be coming back to that. Let's find a fun place to go to for fossils. How about Western Kansas is pretty great. So we could go under Great Plains. And we have a page here that just describes all the sorts of fossils that you would find in the Great Plains region of the South Central United States. You can scroll through and just see some of the, the diversity of ancient animal and plant life that existed over time in this region. So we have now complete coverage. You can click any of these boxes and it'll get you to the fossils of all the different major regions of the United States. We also have quick guides to earth science. So suppose you're teaching a subject and need a quick refresher. We have quick intros to the geologic timescale, rocks, plate tectonics, common fossils, earth hazards, climate, glaciers, energy. These are all one-page overviews of these topics. So if you just want to sort of absorb the basics really quickly, it's helpful for that. We have a page of frequently asked questions about earth science. We sort of add these as different topics strike our fancy, or we find out about questions that people are asking. We'll write quick responses to those questions. This is a page that we put a lot of energy into. United States Earth Science Quick Facts. So for every single state in the country, a week from now, we will have quick facts related to the earth science of each state. And I say a week from now, all that remains are the 11 states of the Northeast. We had hoped to get that finished by today. We didn't quite make it, but by the end of the month, they will be online. So you can check back here and you'll be able to find quick facts. Let's just look at an example. Let's just go to Arizona because it, of course, has great geology, just so you can kind of see what's on these pages. We've developed geologic maps for every state. These geologic maps are all made in-house at PRI. You're welcome to use them for whatever purpose you want. We've also created versions of the maps that include, in some cases, the topography. For each state, if there's an official state fossil, we've listed that. If there's a state mineral, we've identified that as well. Arizona has an official state metal. It's unusual in that respect. Turquoise is the gem. We've also created topographic maps that you can download and do whatever you want with. And then we identify things like the highest elevation and the place of lowest elevation, and then finish up with different places that people can visit if they want to explore earth science and learn more. And so we've done this for every single state in the country. We'll have the Northeast finished, like I said, by next week. We've also created a geologic timescale for Earth at Home. This timescale is it's a little bit more interactive than the timescales that you typically find on the web, in that we've created these breakout geologic maps that show places that you can like, say you wanted to see Cenozoic aged rocks. We have these maps that that show where in the United States you can find, at least in the continuous 48 states, where you can find rocks of each age. And so they're sorted, by geologic subdivisions. Here's the Mesozoic, right? So if your students, I grew up in Wisconsin, I hope to find a dinosaur skeleton in Wisconsin, but because there's no, rocks that are Mesozoic in age, there's no green shading here that tells you that, the rocks are of some age other than Mesozoic. You need to go to places like South Dakota and North Dakota and Montana and elsewhere to find rocks that are the right age. And then for each one of these, different time slices, we've highlighted major events in the history of life and also in the history of the Earth that occurred during that time period. Under additional resources, we also have geologic and topographic maps of the United States. So these are broken out, as you just saw in the example for Arizona, on a state-by-state basis. But if you want to dig in and explore, the maps of each region, you can do that. So we can click on maps of the Northeast, and we've loaded up geologic maps of each state for the Northeast, as well as topographic maps. So here's Delaware, there's the geology plus the topography. Here's just the topography. And each one of these, we've identified the place of highest elevation. Let's see, I think that was all I wanted to say about additional resources. So I'm going to go back to the main menu. So we were up here at this is what we've been exploring. Now what I want to do is go over to the regional guides, and we want to dig in here for 15 minutes or so. So I'm really actually super happy to say that as of this afternoon at like 4 p.m., after working on this for 2 years, we have completed our regional guides to earth science of the United States. And I want to acknowledge that this was this part of Earth at Home was funded by a grant that we received during the pandemic from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, or IMLS. So we're grateful for the support, which has allowed us to build out this part of Earth at Home. And I also want to acknowledge that most of the core content that makes up this part of Earth at Home comes from PRI's teacher-friendly guides to earth science series, which some of you might be aware of. This is a series of books that PRI published between 2000 and 2016 related to the earth science of each region. we've ported all of that written content over to Earth at Home and have added a lot of additional information as well as images. Another new feature I'm proud of this. I just want to highlight it because we just programmed this in today, is that you can now, the map is now interactive. So you can click on a part of the map that you're interested in, and this will take you where you want to go. And I'm going to add, I don't know if I can access the chat right now, but this is right off that main page, that main menu at the top. So all the regions of the country are now available, and we've broke this up regionally because oftentimes when a teacher, wants to talk about earth science, it's often advantageous, of course, for student learning to talk about, the places nearby that are most familiar. And one of the, main take-home messages that we have for Earth at Home is that the Earth has an interesting story to tell no matter where you live in the country. Even if you live in a place with very little topography that's completely flat, beneath your feet, there's an interesting story. And so we really want to convey that to folks, that the Earth has a great story no matter where you live. This part of the sort of landing page for the regional guide section of Earth at Home, which we also call Here on Earth, begins with a section on introductions to earth science topics. If we go in there, it just provides it provides overviews of, different topics. Like if we click on rocks, there's a page that gives, a basic overview of what are rocks, what are the main kinds of rocks, and so on. And then it also ties to, the topics related to, it ties into individual pages about the rocks of each individual page. But there are other ways to access this information. Now we've got the earth science now of all of the different regions of the country. There are 8 regions in total. The way that we've broken it out, that does include Hawaii as its own page. Hawaii, of course, has its own unique geology, and so it needed its own section. We've also, just for the sake of simplicity, we've included Alaska in the Western U.S. section. So what I want to do now is introduce you to the topic of tonight's workshop, which is the Northeastern U.S. So I'll click on that. So you can kind of see what we have here. So the Northeastern U.S. is broken up into several physiographic regions, and you've seen in earlier map, the national map that was on the previous page, all these funny colors, and these funny colors do not exactly relate to geology. These are physiographic provinces, and what a physiographic province is a place that sort of has a unique geologic plus topographic history or combination of features, and that's how these regions are defined. And some of them are familiar, like the Appalachians and Piedmont region. This relates, of course, to a long mountain belt. Some of the terms, though, are less familiar, like inland basin, although maybe you've heard of the U.S. coastal plain. So it kind of varies. Some of these terms are familiar, some of them are less familiar. Geologists call New England exotic terrain because it was basically attached on tectonically in the past, but I don't think anybody living in Maine refers to it as exotic terrain, for example. So this part of Earth at Home has, some of the information is specific to the entire region. So there are pages related to the geologic history of the Northeast, glaciers, climate, energy, earth hazards, and maps. And then certain topics are really focused in on that physiographic province level. So I'm gonna highlight in a minute fossils of the Northeast. But before I do that, Don, would you like to talk a little bit about climate of the Northeast and any other pages here that might be of interest?
Sure, I can say just a little about the climate pages. And again, you'll find the same structure in every region. or yeah, every regional guide has the same structure. And where'd the chat go? Chat. So there's a section on climate, and it gives you the Köppen, I think is how that's pronounced, climate type. And again, this is essentially can be used as an online textbook. I don't know if we cover the complete Regents curriculum. We don't have astronomy, so we don't, but we cover an awful lot of it. And so you can look at the climate normals for the 91 to 2020. We've had some extreme climate events in the last year, so you can think about how things fall out of those normals, and see the annual snowfall with the lake effect areas showing up fairly clearly there, and descriptions of the extreme weather we get, and several some of the pages have videos, like this one on the jet stream and winter storms, and the polar vortex, which has been very important in the last decade or so. Lake effect snow, love that picture of Buffalo. It was a crazy storm that I was here for. And it also has historic climates, which I think is one of the nice thing about PRI resources, is we put things into the context of Earth history and think about how we can use our understanding of the past to understand where we're going. There's some paleoclimates and so forth. And I think there are links from here that go back to the teacher-friendly guide for climate change, but gives a good overview of the climate of the Northeast. And I think I'm going to hand it back to John, unless there are any questions.
So what I'll do now is let's see, I'm going to share again. There we go. So we're back to just so we're orienting ourselves, we're back to the regional guide for the Northeast. And I'll also highlight, there's a bunch of different ways to get to all these pages. So if you just go to that main menu at the top, we can click on Northeast. Here we are. Let's focus in on fossils. I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a paleontologist, so I love fossils. Let's see. So we're located in Ithaca in the Inland Basin region. So I'm going to click on fossils of the Inland Basin and just kind of show you what kind of information you might expect to find on these fossil pages. This, of course, is a Eurypterid. This is New York State's official state fossil, Eurypterus rhomipes. I'm going to scroll down. So the way that the fossil pages tend to be organized, not always, but they tend to be organized, is chronologically from oldest to youngest. So in this part of New York State, we have rocks that span from the Cambrian period through the Carboniferous time. So we begin with Cambrian. There's a little bit of Cambrian aged. Some of these rocks include stromatolites. Stromatolites are really cool. They're basically slimy layers made by cyanobacteria which are photosynthetic. The bacteria form these mats. Sediment gets stuck to the mats, and these things sort of grow up in mound-like structures. We know this because they're still around today in some restricted habitats, but they used to be much more common in the past. So if you go to Saratoga Springs area of New York, you can find stromatolite fossils, which are really pretty cool. Some of the oldest evidence of skeletonized animal life has been found in Cambrian rocks in New York State. Paleontologists don't know what these things really are, so they're small shells. So their technical name are the small shelly fossils. That's what they're actually referred to as. They may be bits and pieces of larger animals. Some of them may be little shelled creatures, but there's something of a mystery. One of the oldest clam fossils, bivalves, ever found comes from the Cambrian of New York. we can scroll through time. We come to the Ordovician. We find amazing trilobite fossils in the Ordovician of New York, a lot of diversity of different forms. Some of these are famous because if you put them under X-rays, you can actually see little legs and appendages preserved, which is really, really neat. Some of the oldest reef structures are preserved in the inland basin and other regions of the Northeast, including some of these oldest reefs in Vermont. The New York State, I mentioned at the top's official state fossil is the sea scorpion, Eurypterus. So we've got some specimens of that here. Some of really cool trace fossils are found in Western New York. So trace fossils are not evidence of what an ancient organism looked like, it's evidence of their activities. And so these are burrows dug through the sediment by some ancient kind of animal. We're not exactly sure what kind. We've sprinkled some of our 3D models throughout these pages. So, the pages themselves are somewhat interactive. So you can see what these trace fossils actually look like in 3 dimensions, which is fun. We love the Devonian period at PRI. We're literally surrounded by it and built on top of it. We've got a bunch of great resources related to the Devonian of New York now online. We don't have time to go into it tonight, but I've got the link here for our New York Rocks exhibit. So this is currently on display at the Museum of the Earth, but if you're not able to visit, you can check out the web version of this exhibit. It's again all free, and just about all the content in the physical exhibit is also available online. You can click on sea life, for example, and find lots of great information about different kinds of fossil organisms. Everybody loves trilobites. You can go on the trilobite page, and we've got videos and all sorts of displays from the exhibits. We've got close-ups of lots of cool specimens and so on.
Yeah, I'll note that Sina, the trilobites are one of her favorite fossils.
Trilobites are pretty great. We also have a link that leads to a virtual collection page that's devoted just to Devonian fossils from New York State. So if you want to just see a whole bunch of 3D models of Devonian specimens, there they are. Excuse me. The first forests come from New York State near Gilboa, which is really great. Some of the first freshwater bivalves are also found in that region. And then there's, we highlight some fossils from Pennsylvania and some glass sponges, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, fossil plants from Pennsylvania and so on. And so we've got, we're happy that we've got this, these combinations of high quality images, and we've got 3D models. We have videos sprinkled throughout, pages across Earth at Home. So they're not static. There's things to interact with on each page. So I'm going to scroll back to the top again. Please forgive the quick zooming here. I'm going to go back to that top navigation. I'm going to go back to the home page of Earth at Home and also mention that when you scroll through that home page, basically the entire menu structure that's at the top is also presented, as you scroll down the homepage. We always put what's new at the top. We've got a new series of videos that we're making called the All-Star Fossils. So this changes, every few weeks or so. We've got a list of some of our most popular pages. So these are the ones that get the most web traffic. If you're just kind of curious about what other people are looking at, here's the regional guides. We just showed you a little bit about the Northeast, but you can explore all these different regions across the country. Here's that digital encyclopedia. Here are the virtual fieldwork experiences, our virtual collections, and then some of the additional resources that I talked about. So I think with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I think we have a little bit of time now for discussion, any questions that you might have, we're happy to answer. Did I
Yeah.
forget anything, Don?
No, I think you covered it very well.
Okay.
And we're opening it up for questions. And if you want to take them, why don't I give you it's 7:44. Why don't I give you 3 minutes to just take a poke around at some piece of it and come back in 3 minutes and share what you were playing with, and explore for maybe stuff that's relevant to your community. And now it's 7:45, so we'll come back at 7:48.
Sounds good.
So Carla asked, do the digital assets have unique URLs? And yes, I believe the answer to that question is yes, right, John? And John, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, essentially the answer is yes. All the images have their own distinct URL behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think you can right click on any image to copy the URL, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, I also mentioned that there's a lot of accessibility features. We've programmed in alt text for just about all the images, a few squeak by here and there. So this is useful if you're using a screen reader to understand what the images are. It's also really helpful for folks. A lot of folks stumble upon our website because they're searching for something, and because we have that alt text, it show Google finds it and leads them to Earth at Home, which is great.
All right, so our 3 minutes are up. So what did folks find, and what are thoughts on stuff you're going to use in your classroom? Speak to me.
I think a lot of us are still trying to figure out how the new regions course is going to work. So I'm hoping that using maybe some of the virtual field work and some of the things like that, the being able to create from what you guys have, I think is going to be awesome.
Yes, I've been following the discussion on the Esprit list about
I'm
with not knowing what exactly is coming.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, I feel you. Other thoughts on what?
Yeah, one of the VFEs for New York isn't working. It's page not found.
Oh dear, which one is that?
The Taggant.
Yeah, that actually is pretty old, but we have a new version that is maybe coming sometime. But thank you for letting me know. I will get in there and if I can't fix it, take it out.
All of this is usable on Chromebooks, I'm assuming.
Yeah. We haven't heard about issue. I think so.
Yeah, the 3D models are just super cool. I mean, they're really high resolution.
Yeah.
Really fun to play with. And John, you said we're over 600 now.
We're over 600 if you include the rocks and mineral. We're over 600.
I actually
There really is a lot there.
I use the
Go ahead. Yeah.
models for my Science Olympiad kids. Fossils are back this year.
Oh, great.
So it's a
cool.
great resource for them.
Awesome. That's good to know.
That's what I'm over here. Here we go. I have something fun to put in this is probably out of date now, but this is way back when. I kind of forgot we made this. So there is a page that I made. I think this was like during the very beginning of the pandemic. We took the Science Olympiad rock list and connected it to all of our, the 3D models that we have.
Yeah, I think
Well, this year it's fossils.
Oh, it's actually okay. Well, that's even better. Yeah, that's great. So I imagine that do you find that we have coverage of most of the fossils that are on the?
Yeah, the students use them, I guess. Well, it's been rocks for the past 2 years. So it was fossils 3 years ago. So I'm sure there's much more on your site now than there was then, but they found it very helpful even then.
Well, I'll say this too, if you're ever like playing around with the 3D models, if there's something that we don't have that you'd like to see us add, please do reach out and we'll see what we can do. We have a fossil collection of 7 million specimens here. So if if it exists, we likely have it, at least for marine invertebrates.
Will do.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you could
Of course.
you spend hours playing with the 3D fossils. Have you noticed, some of you have been on the site before, is there content that's missing that you wish we had? And I'll note we're probably not going to do the astronomy stuff, but the other content of the Regents, I think almost everybody here is a Regents or science teacher. So if there's other content related to the Regents exam that you'd like to see us plug in there, we can do that. And I will give a caveat that we probably won't do the reference tables until we see the new version. But when we see the new version, we'll give that some attention whenever that comes, which has got to be sometime in the next 15 months, right?
Crazy.
With luck.
Yeah.
Nothing like giving teachers time to prepare.
Yeah.
Then they'll argue that you've known this is coming, so you should have been preparing, right?
Yeah, well, supposedly, it's pretty much the NGSS, but what that looks like in curriculum is, as somebody who's been working on it since before it was called the NGSS, I still don't really know what it looks like as curriculum.
But New York added back in the earth science.
Yeah.
Over NGSS. So that was because earth science has always been a thing in New York.
That's right. That's right.
Oh.
Like nobody else in the country. We've got roughly a quarter of the high school or science country teachers in the country are in New York.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Angie, let's put a comment in there. Yes, getting kids ready for bed. I remember those days. Great, great. I guess we can wrap up 6 minutes early if you don't have more questions or comments. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And we'll
This is great.
see some of you at Stannis and Syracuse in a week and a little more, a week and a half.
That's great. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you for the wonderful resource.
Yeah.
Yes, terrific.
Of course.
Thanks.
Have a good night. Be well.
Night.
You too.
Don,
Bye-bye.
can you hear me?
Yep.
John, are you still there?
See
I
you.
am, yeah.
If you have just a minute,
Of course. Yeah.
I'm reminded again of how this is, I forget all the little details. And sorry, Don, I was writing furiously. An hour ago, I thought I was late.
Yeah.
And then,
Carlos,
you know, it was like 3:15. I go, oh my God, I'm 15 minutes late. And I'm like, oh, no, you have 45 more minutes. And then I just kept writing. Anyway, as you know, John, I'm working on a proposal for us, finding a place in a virtual space. And the
Mhm.
one thing I just keep coming back to and thinking is all these digital assets are great. But you know, we're going to be kind of competing against people who have proposals using VR, you know, using a space where you're, you know, gaming or something or doing an avatar or
Mhm.
whatever. I've seen a
Mhm.
ton of those proposals, and that is not this. It is
Mhm.
what we're doing is closest to what you have on there for virtual field work. But is there a, you know, a content management system, John, that just comes to mind immediately for teachers to put together these digital assets? You know, so a web page obviously can do it. We could have them just make web pages, but I'm just trying to think beyond that. Is there something that is intermediary between a web page and a full-on virtual reality setting, which we're not going to have?
Super question, and I don't think I have a good answer right now, but it's fun. It would be fun to think about that. You know, we kind of, you know, in terms of what we, you know, I'll be the first to say we have, you know, we sort of built Earth at Home on, you know, it's kind of rudimentary behind the scenes in terms of the programming and everything. And you
Right.
know, I'm certainly not a web programmer at all. It's kind of, you know,
We
chewing
definitely-
gum and duct tape behind the scenes. But we keep it going. I think there's a lot of fun possibilities that I think are going to be coming down the line, and they'll probably get easier for everyone to use. I don't think there's anything that sort of jumps out in an obvious way to me right now, but I think we need to be thinking in that direction. I know that some of the assets that we've made, like the 3D models, can be, you know, inserted into, you know, VR sort of frameworks, but that's more on the Sketchfab end of things. Yeah. So I know I haven't really answered your question. It's a really good one though.
What I'm just trying to anticipate is in this proposal, you know, NSF always wants you to be forward looking. And the DRK-12s, their primary focus is on research, which I think we're going to be really strong on. But if there's an opportunity for, I don't know, putting in funding for a web programmer, I mean, I'm kind of conflicted because what I want to do is it is not affordable in the K-12 arena to give every kid a VR headset. That's just not going to work. But exposing them to these amazing 3D models. I mean, I had a proposal, oh God, umpteen years ago, Rock Around the World, that was sort of exactly that. Like, what if you could have this huge digital database of all these rock types so that, you know, you see all the variations of marble, of whatever it is, rather than the one sample that your teacher hands you, when you're there, or that you hand your kid. But so, I mean, I guess I want the whole access to multiple images, multiple 3D things, but how do you string it together in a coherent story that that kids and teachers can do without some major content management system that they don't have access to? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
think about Don and John. If is there something we can semi-describe? So in the previous rendition of this proposal, ASU had this partnership with I think it was Pearson textbook publishing company, where they made their I'm sure you've seen it, Don, the Steve's Grand Canyon virtual field trip thing. It's not a VR, but it's sort of that, intermediary kind of space. And then Pearson, I don't know, it became proprietary. And so they were looking at some open access alternative, but still that model was ASU developing these things that kids and teachers can use. And we shifted in the last year before Dawn came involved, and I've been pushing it all along rather than it's not useful to have a grant in which you create this stuff, hand it off, but we want kids and teachers to be able to make their own using all these wonderful digital assets. So I don't know if there's a paragraph or something we can describe in the proposal that can justify some funding that looks at this on your end of the budget, Dawn. It might be a really good thing.
Yeah, I mean, the current version of the virtual fieldwork catalog is just a Google spreadsheet that feeds a Google map, and I think that works for a lot of the stuff. Although, as pointed out tonight, I guess the Taganic one is not working, and I need to go back and either see if I can fix it, and if I can't fix it, then point it elsewhere. We do have other Taganic related assets that we can point to.
Yeah, and you're right. Google, Google Field Trips, Google Maps, that's also a really nice, simple way to sort of tie things in.
Yeah, and one thing I like about that is that, if, for example, you're working across a large district, you can have students at different schools in the district enter in data into a Google form that feeds a Google spreadsheet that then can very easily be mapped on a Google map. So you could,
yeah, I really like that. I mean, it just takes me back to my, GIS roots of
right, and it's
lat lawn and boom,
yeah,
put the earthquakes on the map or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's I mean, I hesitate to get more sophisticated than that, because you get more sophisticated than a Google map, then the grant's over in 4 years, and who's going to maintain it after that? Whereas I think a Google map's going to keep on working.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
If you develop
just
something proprietary and just yours, then you need someone to do that.
So just one random comment about the 3D models. So when we made these 3D models, we put a lot of time and energy into these things using the equipment that we had 5 years ago, and each model would take 2 or 3 hours to pull together. There are amazing apps now. There's one called Polycam, and I've played around with a little bit, that'll make models that are just about as good in 5 or 10 minutes. And I think there could be a piece there where the Polycam's not free, so that does put a burden on
Is that a phone app?
users, but it's a phone app. Yeah. So, you know, you put it on your phone, and it takes a bunch of pictures. You can put a specimen on a $10 Lazy Susan and spin it around, and it'll capture all the images, and then it produces its own model. And the models, I think, are almost as good as the ones that we have
I've used
on the system right now.
Oh, cool.
a number of years, which is also a phone app that's unfortunately just available on iPhones. And it's remarkable how easy it is to use and generates. I don't.
John, when you say, it's not free, that's fine, but I mean, it's not $100, is it? I mean, it's a pretty cheap phone app, would you say, Polycam?
I can't remember, because I think it's one of these apps where there's sort of various levels. I think there might be a
Okay.
free version, but if you want more features or